so the folk online can hear us. But yeah, we're gonna be talking to you today.
Share the screen, sorry. You can share the screen so the online guest can see.
Right, okay. Just on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yep. We good?
I think you need to click share.
Yeah,
The
green button.
the blue one.
Down the bottom right.
Oh, I see. There we go. We good? That's just loading. Sorry for those standing in the back. We have Lego to play with, unfortunately not to keep. We will be taking this back. I am sorry. And that's for an exercise that we'll do later in the presentation. But maybe we kind of set it out so teams of two could do the exercise together, but maybe join a team of two and you can kind of participate as well. It's still loading here. Get in the blue to the wheel.
Yeah.
It takes a while. Okay. But anyway, we're here to talk to you today about you know, how we match policy methodology for age assurance for services designed explicitly for children. In particular, our kind of rationale are thinking about a risk-based approach to age assurance. And then hopefully we'll be able to kind of run you through an exercise that will highlight you know, get the juices flowing and thinking about, you know, what does this look like in practice. So the run of the session, so we're just going to give you an introduction to kind of Lego Online and our digital design philosophy, and then ask you know, a policy ask around kind of age assurance and child-facing services. Now this might be kind of old news to some of you, but the first thing I often get when I talk about Lego in digital policy, people are saying Lego's got digital services. They all think about the bricks, but no, we have a big digital portfolio. Then we'll go into an exercise and then we'll just do kind of a wrap up. But this is an interactive session, so like feel free to kind of ask questions throughout and just, you know, any points or comments, just kind of raise. I just want to check, is everyone online? Can you guys hear me? Just a thumbs up or something will do.
Yes, we can.
Yep, I'm getting that. Great. So
I think you can like turn on the volume of the TV so that we can hear the guest voice if they want to speak.
it's 100%. So
Test.
yeah, we're good. Okay. I can get this laptop to work. All right. So I'm just going to speak ahead of the slides. So Lego, you all know us from hopefully your childhoods and hopefully your adulthood as well. But you know, we first started in 1932 with kind of the wooden duck and the toy, and the Lego brick and the system in play and kind of joining all the bits together. That came in the 50s. Again, all about the physical world, all about, you know, how do children learn through play. And that kind of brought us right up to the 90s when we started introducing Mindstorms and electronic Lego and all these things that you get in Lego education and building engines and systems. And then Lego game kind of started. So we've got a lot of licensed game. You might know Lego Harry Potter, Lego Star Wars. We kind of license these out to independent developers, but we make sure that our IP is protected and they're building it consistent with our values and how you know, Lego brand philosophy looks like in the digital world. More recently, we've launched a social media app called Lego Life that Ashley will speak to in more detail later. And also, you probably heard we're on Fortnite now. So we've got a partnership with Epic Games. And and we built this thing called Lego Fortnite with them, which is, you know, not like your regular Fortnite. It's got much more comprehensive parental controls and minimum defaults and restrictions on chats and other socials. So it's appropriate for kind of younger audiences. And it's not your kind of shoot 'em up battle royales type style. It's about learning through play. It's about building in online. It's about fostering a kind of really inclusive community on Fortnite. And then after that, we've actually recently launched with Epic what we call you know, creator islands. So this is empowering children to actually create things on the Fortnite platform themselves. So not just play within Lego Fortnite, they can build their own islands. They can kind of, you know, design the world the way they want, and use Lego to think about, you know, what does online play look like. So this is just some more examples of what we are on the online world. I think I should also mention that one thing that we're really looking at doing is connecting the online worlds. So all these experiences, building online using digital products, digital bricks, with actual physical play as well. So we've got this center at Lego called the Creative Play Labs. One of the key things that they're thinking about is this concept of fluid play. So what does online and the physical experiences look like? How do you actually, you know, interweave between the two? What role does augmented reality have in those conversations, for example? Because, you know, we are first and foremost a physical product company, but we want to be where kids are because we want them to learn through Lego wherever they are. So that really is, you know, this question of how do you bridge the physical and the digital, so we don't just have kids spending all their times on screens, but also benefiting from physical play, is really center of how we think about the future. But another way that we think about the future, and one thing that we really think about when we think about children online, is child rights and well-being. From a child rights perspective, and you know, I can see Emma in the room who can speak to this much better than I can, but you know, we very much are encouraged by instruments like the UNCRC General Comment Number 25. We really want to live principles like children have a right to associate and play online. Children have a right to have their voices heard. And we want to integrate this into our experiences. Now, there is conflict and tension between children's right to associate and play online with the current level of service design. And I think that right only works when industry and companies take responsibility to ensure that when children are online, they're in the right spaces. So we think about that. We think about, well, how do we design our services to actually enable this right? And ensure that, you know, when they are playing, when they are associating, when they are accessing information, they're doing it in a place that actually helps them grow and is built against their developmental needs. And to help us do that, we've actually commissioned research with UNICEF called RITEC for short, which is Responsible Innovation in Technology and Engagement with Children. And this research is all about, okay, well, what does well-being online look like for kids? What are the aspects and elements of a really positive online experience in a game? And what I've got on the screen there is the 8 different aspects that we've worked out with UNICEF, and our researchers have worked out with UNICEF. So it's, you know, what features enable competence? What features enable emotional regulation? What features enable empowerment, social connection, creativity, safety and security? Super important. It's not just about these other things. You know, it's privacy and safety are at the core of well-being, but they're not the only things we need to think about. We need to think about these other aspects, you know, these other enabling features. And this is kind of the bedrock of how we think about service design now. It's about well-being by design, because from our perspective, we miss an opportunity if we just design services to be safe and secure and private. That's really important for kids. But we also need to think about, you know, if they are going to be online, if they are going to exercise their rights to be online, you know, how do we actually enable them to have the most constructive developmental experience possible? And this is about providing an empirical basis for that type of analysis. I'm going to hand over to Ash now to talk a little bit more about digital design philosophy.
Yes. So on the slide comes up. When we are developing our digital products at the Lego Group, it is a component of, when we're developing the product, we start from the beginning and we think about what we need to do from a compliance standpoint, but we also think about what the children is entitled to have access to. And that is, of course, as Adam alluded to, this joyful play is a core component of what we do. But there is also about ensuring the experience itself is compliant and is meeting the obligations that align to the age of the user. By nature of us being the Lego group, anything that has that tiny little red logo on it is going to be very, very attractive to a child. It doesn't matter if it's intended for one of our AFOLs or adult fans of Lego. The Lego brand effectively makes it something to be very, very appealing to a child. And so when we are developing our products, we do actually have this digital philosophy that undercuts everything that we do. And it really starts at the beginning of our product design and development processes, where we have worked very hard to substantiate some policies that everyone who works to develop these digital products is beholden to. So we would look at our requirements when it comes to digital child safety. We would also look at our design principles, where we're better incorporating play and well-being as a core component of the deliverables of the product. But we would also ensure that we are up to date and aware of the obligations that we might need to be able to meet based on the audience of the participants of our experience. From an awareness perspective, we also invest very heavily in a digital empowerment program. So this is not just about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. So it's about ensuring that kids have an understanding of the skills that they might actually need in the digital spaces to have positive experience, to be positive members of an online community. And what we do know, and Adam and I were just talking about this, is that kids today are actually a little bit less literate than what kids were in the 90s when they were very exposed to learning about computers. And so what empowerment is in place to do is to basically help them understand what being responsible in an online space actually is.
But can I just interject there? What is crucial is that digital empowerment programs don't actually just push responsibility onto parents and kids. It's about saying, there's an element of digital literacy and education there, but is ultimately the platform responsibility to enable those conversations to happen and to take responsibility themselves.
Yes. And I think that's two sides of the same coin in some way. So we do try to drive this idea of allowing kids to have a walled garden to learn and to develop in a healthy way, but ensuring that we also aren't shying away from our obligations as well in the space. And then, of course, compliance, which is arguably my favorite part of the area, as you can imagine. And this is how we're ensuring and proving that we're actually meeting our compliance obligations in this space. And we take this very seriously at the Lego Group. We have a very long history of ensuring the quality of our physical products, and that also extends to how we operate in the digital space. And then, of course, in engagement level, this is where Adam is very involved, but also the rest of our government and public affairs team. But it's also ensuring that we do have quite a lot of involvement in talking with people in the industry who have a lot more experience in certain areas or might be able to share some learnings with us so we can learn from the best. And what we really ensure across the board is that we have this very strong commitment to the fundamentals of what a child is entitled to be protected for or against. And then to draw on a specific example, what we have is our design principles. And this is a really tangible output of what we're attempting to invest in as the Lego Group, which is to ensure that we have a nice little summary that we're able to circulate with all of our designers who develop digital products to ensure that responsible design is at the top of mind when they're starting to develop their products. So they're thinking about joy. They're thinking about how can we ensure that kids have access to the experiences that are going to be constructive, that are going to facilitate the feeling of play in the same way that when you pick up some bricks, there is like a tangible feeling that you get that should actually extend into the digital space as well. There is also components relating to ensuring that we're showing kids the way, so they have an understanding of how they should behave in a certain online space, but we're also living by those values ourselves. So it's a huge commitment that we have, and it's supported by the RITEC initiative, but it is just the beginning of what we're going to focus on. And one of our big ones when it comes to kids and where we devote quite a lot of attention is the development of our Lego Live platform, which is a social media platform that's developed for children. This has been in the market for quite a number of years now, but its original purpose was to allow children to have an online social space where they can share a lot of the creations that they've created with their Lego bricks. So maybe they've been able to buy a set that was originally a castle, but now they've turned it into a dragon. And it allows them to share creativity. It allows them to collaborate to understand if they can come up with a new solution, or they can even just inspire each other to kind of dive back into the Lego box. And what we have is a lot of the key components of a traditional social site. So that's things like likes and comments, being able to share user-generated content, but it is also very, very tightly protected by our approach to minimizing harm. So what we take into account is key mitigations like pre-moderation. So before the content is live and viewable by anyone else on the platform, it is viewed by our moderation service and evaluated to see that it's nothing damaging to the child, but it's also compliant with our internal standards. So it is we take this incredibly seriously. It operates across all of the markets that Lego Life is available in, and it ensures that that we're offering a space that is protected and is not vulnerable to some of the nasties that you actually encounter online. You can befriend users in an anonymized way as well. So it's not about saying, hi, I'm Ashley and I live in Denmark. It's being able to say, look, I just really like bricks. I just want to be able to talk about that I really love Ninjago, or I really love the New Dreams SKU, and being able to allow kids to connect over their points of interest, as opposed to connect as individuals that might be in a geographic space. And that's not to say that we want to eliminate any kind of self-expression. So we want to be able to ensure that kids can still generate avatars, because part of sharing online is being able to kind of express who you are as an individual. But we need to be able to do that in a way that still protects their right to privacy, and also understand that they're quite young and they're not necessarily always going to understand the implications of the choices that they make online. So avatars gives them a great way of still utilizing a lot of our little minifigs to represent who they are, different hairs, different outfits, all of those different things, and they can do it as much as they actually want. Badges also encourage kids to be rewarded for their creativity, so that they can look at they're rewarded for creations, they're rewarded for partaking in challenges, in quizzes, and all of those different things. That allows them to think a little bit more critically about the things that are important to them. And we also utilize nicknames quite substantially within Lego Life. So I couldn't choose Ashley as my username particularly. I could have a randomly generated nameinator, as we refer to it, which basically uses 3 keywords and it's randomly generated. And it is an automatic function that the kids get called into. So it still has that individuality element to it, but it is not linked to any PII.
So you might have we're not just here to plug all our wonderful services, and you might have wondered, like, what's this have to do with age assurance? But we just wanted to set the scene, because one thing that we're finding in a lot of these conversations is a lot of the services, particularly social media services, are kind of, it's about these features. It's got UGC, it's got some socials, therefore they're all the same, or it's got a content recommendation mechanism, and it doesn't actually talk about the risk on the services, which is informed by the mitigations that some companies actually put on them. And from a policy perspective, this is about protecting children and ensuring they have constructive environments to play in and work with. That's what's driving a lot of the regulation around these things. So we just kind of want to flag that, not all services are the same. Some companies, and proud that Lego does this, really think deeply about child experiences on their platforms and how to protect them. So where services are built for kids with robust protections, we think the barriers to access should be proportionate, so they can actually exercise their protected rights to play online, to gain information, to associate, and then to actually access environments which are built explicitly, according to that RightTech framework, to enhance their developmental needs. So in that context, we also need to acknowledge another type of risk, and that's the risk of actually denying a child's denying a child's right to access a service. And in an environment where children are playing online, their peers are, there are a whole bunch of risks that come from isolating a child from a positive space online. It's a different conversation if you're denying or frustrating their access to spaces that have substantial high-risk harms. But we need to have a conversation about, well, what's the cost of these increasing barriers to these positive spaces? And from our perspective, for low risk services and high risk services, we actually have a lot of the tools in place through current age assurance methods to actually enable either set the right barriers between preventing kids from accessing harmful content, whether that be kind of pornography, 18+ content, gambling, liquor purchases, or facilitating access with, a proportionate degree of assurance to low risk services. It's the medium risk that I think is the really tricky one, but we shouldn't let our frustrations at trying to solve, what level of access is proportionate for these mixed audience services where there is some benefits, but also some harm. There's kind of free UGC. Let's not let that frustrate action on, or clarity at least, on the lower and the higher risk services. And this also goes that we don't need to treat all services the same. So as I said, when you think about the policy objective, and then avoid blunt categorization, and enable children to be where it's useful for them. So just thinking about risk a little more. Sorry, this is a super responsive mouse. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So thinking about risk a little bit more. We've just had an attempt here at kind of broad categorizations of some features that go to dictate the risk of the service. So we would say that risk is a combination of the type of the service, but not just the type of service. It's also, more importantly, the features on that service and the mitigations in place on that service, and that all kind of leads to what the risk to the child actually is. So very high. This is pretty uncontroversial, illegal content, 18+ material, pornography. High medium, this is the tricky stuff. Profiling, tracking for commercial purposes, advertising, some monetization practices, obviously processing biometric data, direct messaging and free socials, that has a spectrum of risk there. Unmoderated UGC, but UGC moderation lowers in risk category depending on the moderation tools you employ. Dark patterns and addictive features like infinite scrolling. And then on low risk, we're thinking about educational content. We're thinking about, highly moderated UGC, socials that are set at kind of the right kind of defaults, and anonymize, who is speaking, and then kind of cabined activities where data processing is very severely restricted on the account. So to think about this a little bit more, we've designed an exercise, which is why you have Lego in front of you. Sorry for everyone online, we couldn't ship Lego to you in time, but if those at the back want to join in the exercise, feel free to just kind of make a friend. You've got one bag between two, and the instructions are as follows. So each bag contains, or should hopefully contain, a base plate, a minifigure, a selection of 2x4 bricks, and a selection of 1x4 bricks. And there will be a key next phase, which shows you what each brick means and what the colors symbolize. But broadly speaking, your minifigure is a child user. The 2x4 bricks represent a different feature of a service. The 1x4 bricks represent a different age assurance method. And you can plot out the user journey for using the little white planks. But the idea is looking at the features of the service and looking at think about what is a proportionate level of age assurance and placement of the age assurance methodologies to that level of risk that the features actually present. And then you can kind of map out that journey on the base plate itself. And then it will give you around 10 minutes to do this, and then we can come and discuss why you think, given the style of the service and the feature of the service, that level of age assurance is appropriate. And one thing I encourage you to think about while you're doing this is this risk of denying children access to things that we think are constructive as well. So, having that rights lens on this kind of exercise, I think, is really, really important. But here is the key. So your age assurance methods, your 1x4s, dark pink is hard ID. Light pink is credit cards and kind of financial barriers. Maroon is facial age estimation. Julie, that one's for you. Light brown is the digital ID and wallets. Brown is self-declaration. I know it's a bit cheeky to call that an age assurance method, but we're just throwing it in there. Teal is algorithmic estimation. And sorry, by that, just be clear, it's monitoring the activity of a user on the website of the service in order to kind of map their activity and then predict an age. So it's kind of post the actual gating. And then gray is the wild card. So you guys are experts. You're going to know more than me about age assurance methods. So if there are other methods that we haven't tackled here, which we haven't, feel free to just to use that gray blick to symbolize that new method. And then we really welcome you discussing why you think that new method is appropriate to this risk service. In terms of the features of the service, so the 2x4 bricks, red represents 18+ content. Orange is user tracking. Yellow is possible harmful UGC. Purple is addictive features like infinite scrolling with boxes. Violet is advertising, but also just broader monetization. Dark blue is the direct messaging. Light blue is processing of sensitive data, and green is child-friendly content, so kind of educational content, building social connection, encouraging creativity, these types of things. Is this all clear? Any questions?
Are we supposed to think about different ages and different use cases, or are you saying we're looking for a 10-year-old on?
That's a really good question. I think build it to the age that you think is the most interesting use case.
There's a couple ways of thinking of it. It's either content oriented or user oriented. If there's a line there I would thought already on the content oriented and say that already requires all of this.
I think the rule is build in the way that makes most sense to you, and then explain the rationale in the discussion. And I know, right? This is a free build almost. And if you have you also have a white 4x4 brick as well. That's the wild card for the services. So if there's another service feature that you want to call out as well, that is another type of risk, put that in there and explain that. We've got extra bricks here if there are something's missing, so just kind of reach out. But yeah, please take 10 minutes to discuss, and if you've got any questions, let us know. Yeah. And do that. Hi everyone, I just wanted to in case you're having trouble, here's an example of like what you could do. For example, this is the little minifig. This is a feature of a service which enables direct messaging. Before that, you've got facial age estimation. But before we can actually get onto the illegal content, I don't know what kind of service this would be. It's a bizarre service. But we would require kind of hard ID, more friction age assurance methods. So that's the kind of thing that you might be able to do. I don't think nobody would do that, but you know, that's an example. So sorry, continue.
Thank you.
So kind of tracking the activities of the user across the service, and you could be selling that data on third-party advertisers, for example. It's user tracking for commercial purposes, rather than user tracking for safety purposes. But that's an open question, right? So.
Yeah, I feel
All right, everyone. That's time. Sorry, guys. Sorry to interrupt your play. That's time. Hopefully you've had a chance to map out a bit of a journey. By the way, just full disclosure, this is the first time we've done this exercise and we just thought it up. So we don't know if it works or not, but hopefully it'll provoke an interesting discussion, which is what we'll do now. So is there anyone who wants to kind of discuss their layout and why they settled on the approach that they settled? And if you're able to keep it like fairly brief, because we're kind of running to time. Julie.
Yeah, I think so first of all, we won't set off these, well, we could just make everything, so it makes a snowboarder going on a journey that nobody says about.
That's what Lego's about. That's about. Yeah.
I think a hard case that we've got an 8-year-old, and this 8-year-old, the parent is not really around. So we put the parental consent over there, which wasn't really an option that we had in grey. And they want to go into sort of a mixed site that has pretty much all of the things that were potential adult content, potential extreme, tracking, some educational, yeah, some user generated content, and whatever the yellow one was.
UGC.
Yeah, so all of that was in the mix. So given the parental consent, the parents not around, you sort of put that over there. So we thought the hard identifier wouldn't work, the credit card wouldn't work, the digital ID wouldn't work given the age. So you'd have to offer some sort of blend of the algorithmic, the facial age estimation and self-declaration. And that's the child sort of going through that journey. Hopefully that works. And this is the sort of the random mix they end up in.
And what level of assurance do you think you would have with that mix?
It's in prioritized, so we would have a level of security for the lower risks, but then it becomes difficult, so the hard risks would not be addressed properly.
You'd have to look at maybe it's staged, so maybe you require a recheck once they start to get into the red area. It might be that the regulator thinks it's proportionate given this mix, that certain services, maybe live chat, you have to maybe at 16, that could be the thing, and you have to uplift, check again periodically, and maybe have a buffer if it's 18 plus adult content in there. But there's a whole mix of things in that site. So I'm not picking on a certain site that it could be, but quite a lot of mixed environments that offer a whole range of sort of Aladdin's cave of different options.
It's not Lego Life, we can say that. Thanks, Julie. That's great. Does anyone else want to discuss their approach?
We can provide a brilliant counterpoint to that.
Okay.
Which is we've gone the exact kind of opposite, which is rather than Reddit style free for all sites. It's actually what should the kid be allowed to have access to. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
Essentially, if we're talking about services that should be designed for kids, the only category of what on there that we felt in the middle column was green, child-friendly content, child-oriented. And that some of the other things were more like features or data processing. So we've put those separately. There's no rhetoric here, there's no user tracking. Like those shouldn't even be possible within this environment. But you'll notice our wildcard here is actually parental consent, rather than trying to consent the child by themselves. And so a variety of tools available, not self-declaration. Actually, we didn't put the algorithmic estimation in there either, because that's somewhat closing the door after the horse has bolted. The kid is already in an environment. So there should be, if this is a child-friendly environment, or it's a mixed site, you need to filter the environment for that kid. Is there needs to be parental consent, a range of medium to high friction versions of that to get into the service, and that this arrow track back is actually, if you want to start layering in things like advertising and processing of data, that needs to come back up to the parental consent and approvals. And that may change with age as they go on. But we've gone for the ultra conservative.
Thanks, Luke. Anyone else want to talk about their approach? What can I ask then, if no one else wants to, does the calculation change if there's mitigations in place, right? So the possible harmful UPC, there's nothing that says about, how the moderation there works. So if you've got a pre-moderated approach, that lowers the risk profile. Does that then change the age assurance methodology that's appropriate and the level of friction that's appropriate? Equally, kind of direct messaging. Or if you can expand that to socials, if you have limited ability to interact kind of pre-formulated functions, it's a kind of a happy face, it's a positive engagement rather than free text. Does that then change the age assurance method that's appropriate? I'm seeing kind of nods because it kind of does, doesn't it? And I think that is a little missing in the debate and the dialogue at the moment. We kind of, and I don't know whether any from Ofcom's in the room. Well, yes, I'm not casting stones at all. But there is an element of blunt categorization that can happen when we think about services. And we think about, okay, well, here is an algorithmic feed. Here is UGC content, and it just doesn't talk about the mitigations in place and how it's proportionate to the risk. And then you have burdens on providers that are trying to make things proportionate and to mitigate risk. And we just want to kind of, the biggest burden is not on the provider, but it's actually on the user who then wants to be able to engage with this service, which is designed for them. So that's just kind of, that's the takeaway that we kind of wanted to bring out in this exercise. And thanks for bearing with it. We, as I said, we haven't done this before. So appreciate you guys being the guinea pigs. But that's kind of the key takeaway. But I just wanted to pause and wonder whether there's any reflections on that, further reflections on that, before we can kind of maybe go into some policy discussions or anything else anyone wants to raise.
Because there hasn't been much research on totally ignorant this as to what about the kids that don't have a parent line? How do they get through? I mean, we've seen through what that's been done, how many kids purport to be the adult, but yeah, is there much research on that people are aware of?
We've done a small research study, and what is interesting is we had Lego in the sample services, and as Lego is so well known by parents and accepted by parents, most times they will be around to give permission. So it's a bit of, if the brand is accepted and has a good reputation, then parents probably are more likely. And with other platforms where parents say, I'm so confused, I don't know what my children are doing there. So it's the brand of the bricks. It's not the digital brand that is so much known to parents.
Hmm.
But as this is so long and most people who are parents nowadays have already been playing with the bricks as well. So that's the tradition and the reputation that makes parents aware and makes them ready to give permission. But with other services that we have talked to children, if parents don't know the product, the service, the platform, then they are more reluctant.
And we are so fortunate that the Lego brand kind of engenders that confidence. But even with that, if the parental consent, the mechanisms for providing parental consent are too cumbersome, we still see drop-off rates. This is our cry is like, if we can reduce friction, we can enable parents to put their kids onto safe services that they trust, that they know that they can trust, and we can enable kids to do these things as well. But a lot of the friction is in place because we're trying to think about this problem holistically and lump services in together. And there's obviously going to be these medium risk services where it's a much harder challenge. But we shouldn't let trying to solve all cases provide friction where it doesn't need to be and actually frustrate parents and frustrate children. So that's an excellent point because we still see it. Okay. Unless there's any further reflections, might just move on to kind of some of the policy questions that we have. And this is all just talking about the risk-based approach in the round. So I'm basically repeating what I've said across the presentation, but we have the tools right now to address high and low risk scenarios. We think it's the medium that's difficult. We can avoid blunt categorizations, and let's kind of think about the nuance and how the role that risk plays in categorizing the service and requiring the level of age assurance that's necessary. We should also ask about whether we can integrate age assurance needs within existing risk assessments. So increasingly across the world, OSA here, OSA in Australia, to some extent the DSA, God knows what's happened. It's been 5 minutes since the US has been legislating, so I haven't checked what the latest that the states are up to, but assumingly there's another framework somewhere. And these increasingly look at, well, let's take a risk assessment about the service. But what is missing a little bit is let's actually pair the level of age assurance to that risk. They're still kind of thinking about the categorization more broadly. So as we actually become more familiar with risk and as legislation requires us to, we should bring age assurance into that conversation and kind of make use of the legislative tools and frameworks that I think are needed in a lot of instances, but can provide some clarity here. And more broadly, I think the risk-based approach, it can actually incentivize firms to build more responsible products. So they want to reduce friction. They want people to be onboarded onto their services in a serious way. But if the only way they can achieve that is by putting in mitigations in place that make their environment safer for children, and then there's an explicit regulatory incentive to do that, then I think we kind of lead to a world with more responsible design, which is really what we want to see at Lego. We want to see, all firms kind of taking up that baton. I see there's some online. I'm wondering if you're attempting to ask a question or just shopping around. Is there anyone online who'd like to say anything? Nope. Cool. So that's that. Thanks for bearing with us. Great to see everyone here. And yeah, if you've got any more questions, either we've got 5 minutes left, you can raise it now, or just catch Ash and I after the presentation.
Can I ask,
Sure.
the things that you put at medium risk, where have you got the information for those things have been categorized in those different ways?
Don't worry, we aren't going to the ICO website and looking at medium risk. No, this is the kind of a broad, just
Okay.
finger in the air type thing. So if you've got issues with that, my fault, basically.
I think this has been a really helpful conversation because a lot of the age assurance chat is like it's for a prohibited or restricted service, which is, those things are controlled access to, but that's not 99% of it's my kids online in general getting access to stuff. This is harder actually, because you're talking social context, you're talking playgrounds, behaviors. My kids are the kids on Fortnite, in year 5, and I tell them it's because I love them more than their parents like that. Somehow that works at the moment, but it won't last for very long. So this is a really hard stuff. So thanks for today.
No worries, thanks for coming.
Lovely to have some hands-on.
Yes, so please return. No, you can keep the minifigure. How about that? And leave everything else. Thanks everyone.
Well,
Yeah, I'll taking it apart for today. Right, thank you so much. Are you all here tomorrow, or you saying?
Yeah, I'm catching a train tomorrow back to London, but catching a train back to London tomorrow, but yes, we're here tonight. Yeah, let's go to a coffee or something tomorrow.
Oh, sorry. I'm around tonight. Is it social then?
Yeah, we'll be at that. Yeah.
Right, right there, yeah.
So it sounds like
Well, yeah, I mean,
that figure is going to be so Christmas, it's like he's something. I was really fascinated by it. He's just going to be the way that I always listen to it. And they might use it. Yeah. It's just interesting to look at the data and works, and I just think, it's so much in here that so much to chew on.
Hi, no problem. Thank you. How are you? Yes.
I've been having a little bit looking around and hearing.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting to maybe not always have this wild focus and just maybe see where the industry is heading more broadly. And it was kind of touched on by Adam here, but I think it was I didn't really so kind of it's all the biggest threat.
Yeah.
So,
Especially the prevent the illegal stuff, and like interesting where that industry is.
I understand that
Skilly.
you know, there are high returns to them where you can see like on farm stuff, but you can also see
In that.
food stuff as
Yeah.
well, and they're all just.
It feels like it is, doesn't it? Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of really established. It's not really. Everyone kind of has said like it. Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, this is where I'm going.
Yeah, it's really great way of thinking. Yeah. Thank you. That's actually a wonderful way of looking at it, because I think there is, Adam and I touched on this briefly together, is like, we wanted to bring up mitigations here, particularly in space approach, because. And it's good, right? So I think. It does, but then it kind of. The price will come down and just be more. So I think that's what we're seeing a little bit, they're going to, and goes and fights the world match.
I know, he's good at it, I could tell, I was like, oh, no.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yes, I do.
Really fun to get. Oh, Tim. I would love that. Yeah. It's like I said,
Yeah, maybe not.
no one's forget what I need. Is it actually? Yes.
Yeah, and also the round table was.
I'll just.
So, you know, there's a.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you like?
So,
So, I mean, a lot of that is, you actually can't get, direct access on. There's no private.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then what that's-
Back.
Yeah, and it's back doing it. I really enjoyed
It did become an awful lot in a short period of time.
So I have a campaign to make.
Right.
So we're all about. Yeah.
I'll see you online. Yes.
You work. All work.
Picked up a laptop and scanned it.
Improvise, maybe.
Yeah.
So we always carry out that.
You got a list of questions?
He said to me, I'm pretty sure I got that. I think it's anything out of it.
Does it?
Yes.